Well, it's evening again. Just sort of needed to unwind before going to sleep. Been having some troubles. Some great needs that were met by a friend, and I greatly appreciate it. Maggie has new shoes. I know there have to be others. That you get to a point in life when you really want to sit down and have a good cry, but you can't. Many of us were trained that if another could make you cry, they won. So you learned how to force them back down the back of your throat. Yes, you can choke on tears. It's more than just a saying. As winter approaches, I'm blessed to have a roof over my head and a heating system, enough food for me and Rocco, usually enough to meet my needs. And a little left over. And with that, I try to bring joy into whatever I may be doing, whichever communion I'm working in. An interesting thing, after the COVID thing in the United States, people became very segregated in communities. Almost xenophobic. Well, if you're not part of my group, you might contagious. I can count my good cries. The first good cry came after my friend Frances died while I was taking care of her end-of-life care and administering her end-of-life medication. In all honesty, it's human euthanasia. What really broke my heart is when Sugar, her dog, was put down, and I'd promised Frances that I was going to take care of Sugar. Oh, she was a hellion of a chihuahua. But the month I spent with Frances, basically 24/7, sleeping on the floor, so that if she got up in the middle of the night and started wondering, I'd know. Well, Sugar started sleeping on the pillow next to my head. I had a good breakdown with one of my priests. Bless all the priests. Spontaneous prayer is not one of the strong points in the theological training of the Episcopal Church. It needs to be written and read. Well, having a slightly Pentecostal Nazarene background, Somehow I learned how to speak with the Creator. Taking care of Francis was a month after Ireland had decided I should repatriate back to the United States. I thought about going to Brazil, but no, I had to go back to my point of origin. So everyone was in lockdown with COVID. I'm with Frances helping her die. I wasn't having time to mourn leaving peace, security. The cottage sold, was just waiting for everything to be. I could have stayed. I could have stayed. Too old and too broken for Ireland. Though I never took a penny from them. Then continued to try to find things to do. I adopted Rocco. Yeah, we had a few. Lost my parlor suit. Um, the place Rocco came from had him on Tizanidone or Trazanidone, and well, there wasn't a tapering off period. So when I would leave, his anxiety kicked in, and he recarved the whole thing. So to help his anxiety, I adopted Carmen from the same shelter. She was on the same medications. It's a mass control medication used on all the dogs so that it can be easier for the people to handle them. And it gives them a false calmness. Rocco and Carmen had some spats. It was a year after I'd adopted Carmen. I was making the bed and I forgot to wake her up, and she attacked the left side of my face, where the big scar is up here. Her tooth caught my eye and scratched it. Rocco had started hiding under the bed away from her. I had to make a decision to take her back to the shelter to be put down. Felt like a total failure. Absolutely, completely. I've had to have animals put down for illness. And the flood came out. For a while. And I stifled it. I worry about Rocco having just a human attachment. Because if anything happens to me, it will be very difficult for him if he doesn't have an association with another dog. Um, he is my everything here at home. But I'm looking at him right now, resting. We had a good supper. I want him to have some socialization so that when the time comes, Lordy, I used to have a bed full of animals. Let's see, at transition home, there was Yelda, Vinzel, Jacob, Chance, Noir, her 3 kittens, and me in a twin bed. It was very comfy. They'd all find spots to I lay on my side so everyone found a spot. Chance liked to lay over the top of my head. I think he wanted to try to keep my spirit in so I wouldn't go anyplace. Then one of my neighbors there at Transition Home threw some product over the fence, and it poisoned Jacob. And I had to have Jacob put down. But that's before Ireland. What I'm saying is, I have the knowledge. But if animals are put on a anxiety medication that's also an antidepressant, it messes with their dopamine and their serotonins, and there has to be a taper off. You can't just stop. Because if they had triggers before, the triggers pop up and 10 times as worse. So I tried him with an older companion. Rocco's very passive, unless it's an opossum, then that's a whole different story. And that ended very badly. That is why Rocco eats the food that I cook. He has difficulty with kibble. Sometimes I'll leave him some kibble out if I'm going to be gone and past our daily meal, and it's going to be late. And he'll nibble on it a bit, but not much, because of the attack on his throat. I'm considering, since I've had Jack Russell rat terriers and big dogs and sheep and cats all living together, I would like to find him a little smaller dog companion. Rocco can teach a lot about um, being a companion to a disabled person. And believe me, adding another one to the table All I have to do is add some more pasta to the cooking. And then when I'm gone, he wouldn't have to be on guard the whole time. I'm hoping. It used to be that I could find a song that would help me get the tears to flowing. But the increases of pain have made me rather stoic. It's very easy for me to try to help others. Absorb their sorrows, listen to the troubles. More difficult for me to express it so that it's publicly acceptable. Oh well. There are few people that have been in my home, and more people are realizing that, hey, I'm dying. An awfully slow death. I must have more work to do. There's not a lot I can do anymore. And there are days I force myself to do things other people go, oh, that's easy to do. Yeah. If you got 2 days afterwards to try to recuperate, basically, my area would be from my waist to the top of my head is my work zone. A few people have been in my home, even though it's mess. And sometimes I wonder if they think poverty is contagious. It's not. I'd be very happy with a house the size of my back 3 rooms. The front 2 rooms I don't really use. Why have a room prepared for company when there's not a company common? That'd be very Miss Havisham. Uh, the mariachi is starting up again. Living in a multiracial, diverse community like Martindale, it's good. But back on subject. My poverty is not contagious. Although if it were, would that mean that I would eventually get over it? Like a contagious disease or something. I'll have to start buying those lottery tickets. They'll say, What's the stress, Joe? Do you want this in payments over time or a lump sum? I think I'd take the lump sum. Pay off the strange mortgage I've got that ended up being a personal line of credit, and it's all screwy. Get everything done to the house I wanted done, and the property declared a urban sanctuary, which is part of the reason I'm planting certain plants. And well, it is a nature habitat here in my little Brockloon. Now another thing. I've seen a few pass over, been with them, and I didn't catch anything. I know that my body is becoming smaller. Shoot, in the last 4 months I've got skin hanging. It's an ugly sight. I guess I could go to a plastic surgeon and they could just put me on the table face down and pull all the skin up and sew. My eyes would end up being where my ears are. Then I'd be hearing out the back of my head. But no, death and dying aren't contagious. But there are times I wish I could sit down and have a good cry. And then I'll be doing things within one of my communions. Communities, kiddo. That's where the word comes from. And the more communions you have, the greater your community will be. And I see eyes. I see sorrows. I see some of the simple happinesses. People that are homeless because they don't make enough, or are homeless because they have no supervision to help them keep on their medications. No one to talk to about what their internal voices are saying. Some that may have a record that prevents them from employment but I'll smile because people need smiles. I'll meet eye to eye and share what little joy I can give. Sometimes I can be the comedian, old Irish nun. Never talk down, I talk with. If my disability income disappeared, I would be right there with them. So I don't want any tragedies or anything, but I'd really like to cry. Take some pressure off. Oh, Lordy, I'm not pretty when I cry. It's not coming out of the nose, face all wrinkled up. I, early on Facebook I wrote, "Don't look at me, I'm not pretty when I cry." So, I think I may have emptied out the top of the iceberg. As you know, the bigger part's always on the bottom until it flips. I want to go to an early election and post my opinion in a vote, and then sit back and wait. For some of us, this election will be the difference between life and death. Those are just the simple facts. I'll be voting so that I can continue and my youngers can have a safer existence for 4 years. And that maybe the United States can grow up and realize politicians are not prophets. Period. I won't say what one is an incarnate of, but I think you can get my idea. So many comparisons to what's being said now to a history I heard from my uncles and grandparents, and I don't have that big of a garden planned out yet. Got a wonderful cellar for canned goods. Well, I can hear that the rodent population is getting rowdy tonight. When you got half a wall in a kitchen that's only lath and stud. There's only so much you can do. The mice population has gone down, well, quite a bit. The only ones I see are the small ones with tails that are 3 times the length of their body. If I see any of those little fat suckers with short tails, catch 'em and freeze 'em. The hawk will appreciate 'em. But what is helping control um, the mouse population um, with the destruction of the rest of the woods over where Vonwald was, the Norwegian wood rats that once lived in those woods have had to find new homes. Well, I met one I named him Henry, after Ratatouille. So my rodent-proof containers, cabinetry, work, and you will think that I'm absolutely bonkers. But every night I put out a can full of dry food by the kitchen wall. It's keeping them out of things. I can't use poisons. Um, the traps that kill, if Rocco got his paw on one, it'd break his paws. So I'm hoping that the two black cats that show up every fall are going to take occupation of the cellar again. Reminds me of, there was an old lady who swallowed a fly. My, oh my, she swallowed a fly. I guess she'll die. Well, I'm not going to eat a horse, I'll guarantee you that. So that's the way things are. And believe me, I'm going to keep on going until whatever this is I'm supposed to be doing reaches a completion, or enough seeds have been planted, enough minds have been opened. Because I don't want to use crowbars to open them. Maybe a shillelagh, but that's life. So I think I'm emptied out enough that I can go to bed. But I want all of you to remember, those that might laugh at me, those that appreciate my kindness, my craziness, my smiles, my understandings, I love you all. We all may not always agree on all subjects, but each one of us, each one of you, have a value and a purpose and a journey. That doesn't mean everyone is going to have the same. And there's no coin phrase to put to it, but know that you are loved. And Sister Estelle Kinkade-Wilson will always ramble. I'll try to be there when you need me. Sometimes even if you don't. It's the best part of being old. You're allowed to be unique. That Irish nun in the hood that must have some juju, 'cause plants grow like crazy around her. And she's out there talking to the birds and the trees and complimenting the flowers and still looks up to say hello. It's a joy being a crazy old nun. Good night, kids.